Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Rage of Light Redemption, out December 8th as a self-release. The album has 9 tracks, 47 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are a Swiss trance prog melodic death metal band. It's really hard to define this band under one genre, under one umbrella. Their sound is very eclectic, and this record is no different. As far as the album itself is concerned, I wasn't a huge fan of the structure of this record. This album is built more like a compilation and not necessarily an album that has a path, a journey for you to engage yourself with in the first song and then follow that path throughout the entire existence of the album. I felt like the record was a little bit bumpy. I almost had to reset my expectations, reset myself with each and every single song. The tracks have quality within the individuality of themselves, within the walls of their confines, but they're not really well integrated with one another when you look at the big picture and you look at this album as a whole. So it's a record that has strength in the individual songs, but that strength doesn't really translate to the strength of the collective. Once you get into the sound, definitely this record is driven by the synths. If you're familiar with the band, if you heard their previous album, this is not going to be a surprise. They are the backdrop, they are the spinal cord of this band, and this record really showcases that spinal cord, that drive that pushes each and every single song, creating a large footprint, expanding the tracks, helping create volume, helping making the songs feel bigger, more powerful, more energetic at times. And then you have all the other elements coming in to complementing that experience. You have the drums, the guitars, the bass. All of them are there, not in a secondary role, but definitely on a parallel role in order to make the sound feel as thick with as much depth as possible. And this record really achieves that. I really felt that overall, with the exception of a track here and there that feels a little bit more stripped down, that feels a little bit more simplistic in nature, overall this album really has a lot to give in terms of the volume that it carries, in terms of how robust it is, and how powerful it sounds at times. So that's a very important element, one that I see a progression from the previous record into this album. I actually felt like this record felt bigger to me, sounded bigger, and it had a lot more volume within its tracks. Now, the guitar sound could have been slightly stronger. I really enjoyed the guitars, don't get me wrong. I like the sound of the guitars, I like the execution. Some of the solos on this album really feel a little bit more of a classic nature, which enhances the overall quality of the tracks, and it brings a different flavor into these songs. But I wanted them at times to feel even heavier, to be more pronounced in the heaviness that they're giving these tracks, to be even more pronounced in the power that they need to infuse into some of these songs. So it felt like they were getting almost to that point, and then they felt a little bit short of it. I wanted a little bit more from them because I think it was there to be given. Now on the vocal side, you have Martina coming in for her first album in the band. She's replacing Melissa Bonney, so there's always this expectation of what's going to happen vocally on this record. Well, vocally, I really enjoyed her voice. First of all, I think she fits in to this sound perfectly. They found the right person for the right band, for the right sound, for the right approach, in this case for the right album. Her clean vocals are phenomenal. If I have to pick between harsh and clean, I'm definitely going to go with the clean vocals because I felt like the melody in her voice was magnificent. A little bit of darkness, adding a little bit of a somber flavor in some cases, but super melodic, super creative, creating ebbs and flows just with her voice, really becoming the puppet master as far as the tracks are concerned. On the harsh vocal side, I felt like they used it a little bit too much, and sometimes even hurting the clean vocals when you superimpose one on top of the other to try to create some volume, to try to create a little bit of a sense of a bigger picture. I wasn't a huge fan of it because I felt like the clean vocals deserved a lot more attention on this record, because that is the strong point of this album. And when you look at the sound that this record has, those clean vocals were really meant to be there to emphasize the beauty of the album itself. And I felt like the harsh vocals should have been used throughout the entire record, almost as an add-on, almost like a spice. Sprinkle in here, sprinkle in there, but perhaps not too much of it so that it doesn't sour the overall experience. I can understand why they were used. You kind of want to show the range that you have. You kind of want to show every tool that you have at your disposal. But I felt that overall, perhaps there was too many harsh vocals throughout the entire album, and it kind of hurt the overall experience. And it took a little bit away from how melodic and how beautiful and somber some of these tracks really become just by pushing those clean vocals into the forefront. Overall, the album continues exactly where the previous record left off. I felt like there were some elements that we see an improvement. The overall sound presence is definitely better defined on this record. This album has that quality of individual songs that starts to see the steps forward taken from the previous record. I feel like they still have to work on finding a way of balancing the record, making the album more cohesive, more as one, and not just concentrating on the quality of the individual songs. And the other side of things is definitely the guitars needing perhaps a little bit more of a push, and the vocals going forward. I would really push those harsh vocals into a secondary role, allowing the clean vocals to be the predominant factor throughout an entire record. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with 2.0, a very bouncy track musically, mixing heaviness and melody. It really comes together wonderfully across this entire song. The vocals are very diverse in its approach. You're going to get clean vocals, you're going to get harsh vocals, you're going to get a narrator style that comes in between. So the full range is on full display as far as this song is concerned. The clean vocals enhance the melodic side of the track, and then the harsh vocals help bring in some heaviness to the heavier moments of the song. So the vocals really become that puppet master that starts to pull the strings depending on where you are within the track and what you want out of the volatility that the song has. Where the song is going musically, that's exactly where the vocals are following behind. So really interesting track, really interesting dynamic from that perspective. Next we have Chasing a Reflection. The synths, drums, and guitars really well packed in together, feeling as one. Perhaps one of the songs that you really feel that volume, that robust nature of their sound coming together and having a direct impact from the beginning all the way to the end. This is not to say that there's not melodic moments or moments where you see that intensity kind of die out. They exist within the track, but overall, when you get to the end of this song, you just feel like this was a very heavy, substantial track that just comes at you with a lot of intent and with a lot of aggression. Now, the vocals break the track a little bit. They create some of the dynamics that the song needs to have, changing the momentums, changing the movements of the song itself, and that helps create a more interesting, a more engaging song all around, making it big, making it heavy, making it dynamic, adding melodic portions to make the song feel more compact, feel better constructed all around. And then you bring in a very interesting solo towards the end that it's super melodic, super classic, almost a touch of classic heavy metal coming into the forefront, allowing the song to go in a completely different direction, but at the same time still staying connected with a more melodic side that we saw throughout the entire track. So really interesting approach that worked really well. Last but not least, Aspiration, heavy thumping track from the start all the way to the finish. Once again, there are some moments where it dips ever so slightly, but overall, when you get to the end of the song, you felt like you listened to a very heavy track that had this sense of coming at you and never really slowing down. It stays consistent in its approach, it stays very consistent in its execution. Once again, the vocals creating the ebbs and flows between the cleans and the harshes, allowing the track to not feel linear, to not feel flat. Musically, perhaps a little bit more linear, vocally, not so much. But the dynamic between the two really allows the song to have a very interesting nature to it and be very engaging from the get-go. This is it, Rage of Light Redemption, out December 8th as a self-release. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.